Not as hot with a thunderstorm in parts of the area. The high will be 82. Tuesday, mostly cloudy with a high 85. Wednesday, considerable cloudiness with a thunder shower in spots in the afternoon. The high will be 83. That's your accurate weather forecast. I'm Garrett Beck for AM 860, The Answer.
For everything from questions about cucumbers to homes on cul-de-sacs, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb in Real Estate Show with Stan DeFreitas, the dad, and James DeFreitas, the son. For the next hour, call in with your questions about gardening, growing your favorite veggies, and growing your profits in real estate. Locally, call 813-289-1860. Toll free at 877-969-8600. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And a big good morning or good evening. This is, of course, Sunday, the 23rd of April. We are live. I am live. So if you've got a call, sometimes our shows are recorded. James and I often record a couple of shows, and then I come in and do a live one. Ask that particular question about your tree, your citrus, your palm, your grass, your huddled masses. Give me a call. That's 1-877-969-8600 or 813-289-1860. And Ken, we are here. We are proud. I heard 860 won some awards last night.
Yes, last night. I'm a little tired this morning. I was in Orlando last night along with folks from the station, and we were there for the annual Florida Association of Broadcasters Awards banquet.
Well, I figure we are always blessed with Roger P. Shulman, who has been who's kind of a legend in our industry forever and a day, and he won an award, right?
He won an award for being anchor there, and we also picked up an award for weather segments that we did around Hurricane Ian. So.
Sure, we did a great job on that.
Yes.
Kudos to our station. Pat on the back to Roger P. Shulman. And I'm always amazed. I listen to him often, to him and to you in the morning. And I'm amazed for, a relatively small news department. We really sound big on the air.
Well, we try.
And so pat on the back to you and him. And, of course, Joe and all the rest of the crew who support that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I give you guys kudos, and I've been around this business for 45 years. I know Roger P. Shulman has been around here that long, at least, maybe longer for a young guy. And at least Roger always has that young guy attitude.
He does, doesn't he?
He's not quite that young anymore, but he still sounds young.
Still has a spark in his step if you watch him.
He does. I've always admired Roger. He worked with some of the biggest in the industry, like Jack, and on the Q Zoo when it was number one.
Yeah. He talks about those days fondly.
And he was, you name some of the biggest rated shows that were in the market here, and Roger was usually a part of them.
That's how you become a legend.
So, Roger P. Shulman, we give you salute, and I am proud that I have known him for, most of those years, all those years. And occasionally, Roger will call me and say, hey, we got a freeze coming in here. Give me a little sound bite for something that's coming up. And I'm always glad to do it here on AM 860, The Answer. And now you sent me, and you did a good job. I'm going to say you sent some nice photos to me.
Yeah, I've got a couple of problems that I've been meaning to talk to you about, so I brought some photos in today. We'll start with the palm tree. I've got some white dots on a couple of them, and I don't know if that's something that I should be concerned about.
Let's see. It looks like ... Morse
code on my trees, yeah.
Actually, what you have here, and no one can probably really see it from that, but it is a lichen. It's an algae and a fungi living in mutual benefit. And it's, we could call it a symbiotic relationship. I'll show you that I used to teach horticulture, so I'd make my students learn some of these things, show them pictures.
Mutually beneficial, then.
It's not such a problem. Now, your next picture where the bark's coming off.
Yeah, what is that?
Well, with palms, remember when we divide trees into both dicots, which would be oaks and things of that nature, two seed leaf is what a dicot means when it pops first up. Palms are monocots. They're one seed leaf comes up, which means they're in the grass family.
Okay.
And when we have bark, which we call on a palm, we call it pseudobark because it's not real bark. You know, it's there and it's a little hardened, but it's not like an oak tree.
Gotcha. All right.
And you can almost see and hear these like straws inside there.
Yes, I can. Now you mention it.
And those are called vascular bundles. And in a palm, if it gets injured, as this has been injured, and it probably goes back to some physical injury. Maybe the guy was moving, warp one on his mower. Maybe some damage from cold one time, a long time ago.
Well, if you remember back in Ian, I told you I had one tree that I thought was going to go down because it was swaying so far back and forth, and that is on the side that was being bent over.
So maybe some stress cracks.
Yeah.
So you've lost some of the outer bark. Good news with the palm is it'll always be there. It's not going to change. It's not going to grow over. With a hardwood tree, let's say if it were an oak, it would try to compartmentalize around the edges. And there was a Dr. Shigo who came up with this compartmentalization, at least one of the theories. He's credited with it. I'm sure other arborists also were part of that.
Does this weaken the tree?
The tree can live with it for a good long time. I might go over that trunk sometime with copper, neutral copper or liquid copper, and you could either spray it on.
Really?
Just because it'll kind of make the trunk, you'll get rid of some of the algae and fungi. And I'm also worried about fungi growing into that bark where it doesn't have much protection there now. It can get into those vascular bundles. And if it continues to grow into there, then the tree will weaken, and the next big storm, that's where it will probably pop over. And we'll have one.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a matter of, with hurricanes in Florida, it's not when we're going to have them. It's not if they're going to happen.
Exactly. So liquid copper.
Liquid copper. Oh, speaking of that, I was going to say I just had nice notice from my insurance company saying we're going to drop you in the middle of August because we are getting rid of half of our customers in the state. Not that you weren't a good paying customer, but I said, well, that's not a very nice, happy hello.
No kidding.
But I think we're going to get more of that, and I think we'll see our rates go up more. And,
I think that's pretty much guaranteed. Yeah.
Yes, and like everything else, as people say, well, we don't care if gas goes to $12 a gallon. It's going to force everybody to become driving electric. Well, let me tell you, folks, there's not enough electric out there for everybody to start driving an electric.
But not only that, but electricity is a commodity just like gasoline. What do you think is going to happen at that price when there's less electricity around?
Everybody's going to pay more.
Everybody's going to pay a lot more.
And how do you generate it? You're either going to generate it with gas or coal. There's not enough wind and solar yet to do that. And the problem when it's really, really hot and really, really cold, the wind doesn't usually move very much.
Brownouts are an option, I guess.
Yeah. You can say, well, how much storage do we have? Well, you got about 1 minute worth of storage.
No, the only answer is nuclear.
Well, yeah. And now, that's been so poo-pooed over the years.
A new plant just went online somewhere in this country. I'm not sure where.
Oh, that's great. Well,
yeah, I thought so too.
And today they can use pellets. I remember talking to my brother who has his PhD in nuclear physics. And I said, well, how come these rods and stuff can cause problems? The Russians had problems with their Chernobyl, and we've had it at 3 Mile Island. He goes, well, if they use the little pellets, it's much, much safer. They don't have to have these great big rods that can melt all the way through. I guess they can control it better. And I'm not a nuclear physicist, but according to him, he said the technology has become much, much safer. Now, there's this stigma. You think of nuclear and you think of atomic bombs, but we probably should go back and revisit the idea of safe nuclear energy. And you go, well, where are we getting it from? Well, when you even talk about your solar panel, there's a nuclear fusion factory called the sun that's keeping us alive.
Yeah, that's tough to replicate.
They're
getting closer. They are making some great strides, but they're nowhere near it yet.
Yes, it's not there. There is a tremendous amount of energy in fusion, more so than fission.
Oh, yeah, and it's all free.
And there's a lot of energy in fission.
Yeah.
So it's not something that I think if it is done correctly, will there be some problems down the road? Always. I mean, it's like your cars. People go, well, I like my car. Well, sure you do. 50,000 people die every year, but you go, it happens. And it's kind of like, gun people saying, well, It's not guns that kill people, it's people. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
And it's also people who don't kill people. It's the person that makes the difference.
Well, back at the homestead down there in Sun City,
Yes.
moving on to some bushes that I have that I took some photos
You've
of.
got some gardenias. Your gardenia's gone through some dry periods. I see
Okay.
those bright yellow leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem it has is that you're a busy guy and you're here and you're not always watering. And I can look at your soil and see that it's basically sand.
That's true, yes. So not enough water in general.
Not enough water. We will get rain, but it's called June. And right now, we're getting hit and miss.
Well, right now I'm watering like once a week. That's about it.
Yeah. In fact, I had someone yesterday. I gave a talk for Earth Day at the Oldsmar Library. And I had a nice group, little group. Wouldn't set the world on fire, but we had about maybe near 20 people. And a lady came up with her gardenia. It was in a container. She bought it. And they told her where she bought it to water once a week. Well, in a container, even more so, you need to water more. She had a lot of yellow leaves. And you can't water a 3-gallon container, which is what she had, once a week. That's just not enough. I said, and that's the reason you're getting all these leaves. When the plant gets into a stress, it starts to shut stuff down. And the same thing, I could make an analogy with people. If you're into a stress, you start to your heart goes, well, I can't get blood to my feet. We're going to shut that off. We'll shut off blood to your arms. We may shut off blood to your brain because we got to keep the main core things going.
Sure.
And the same thing if someone's getting your frostbite. Everything else starts numbing up first because the body is trying to survive. And I'll make that wild analogy between your gardenia here. Mm-hmm. When it went through enough stress, it said, well, we got to get rid of some of these leaves. I can't hold all these leaves because it's too dry. And so the leaf turns yellow and it falls off. Now, sometimes we get a little bit of that this time of year just because new leaves pop out, old leaves start to drop.
Right.
And with those notes, I'm going to come back to your gardenia. If you've got a question, give us a call, 813-289-1860, or toll free throughout the world as we know it, 1-877-969-8600. And you stay with us as the Plant Talk and Real Estate Talk continues here on AM 860, The Answer.
Want to talk real estate? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at AskMrGreenthumb.com. An air conditioner? Keep your home's AC running smoothly all year long with Easy Breezy AC. With thousands of active commercial and residential customers, Easy Breezy AC is Tampa Bay's most trusted HVAC company. Easy Breezy AC cares about those in need. Donate 2 cans of food and receive $20 off a $79 service call. Go to EasyBreezyAC.com and use promo code GreenThumb for an additional $10 off your service call. Call 727-856-HVAC. Life's hard. Comfort's not.
Why choose Stafford Tree Service? Is it because they're experienced, have the latest equipment, and friendly professional personnel? Absolutely. Stafford's positioned themselves as a leading tree trimming company in all of Tampa Bay. With honest professionals and competitive pricing, they'll earn your trust too. In business for over 15 years, Stafford Tree Service is licensed, bonded, and insured to provide you the very best tree trimming experience. Call today, 727-546-8786, 727-546-8786. On the web at StaffordTreeSVC.com.
Biophilia, our innate attraction to other living things. It's why people love plants. And around Tampa Bay, Plants, that's Plantz, is bringing nature inside in workspaces and homes by delivering beautiful foliage plants. Our plants increase oxygen and filter out pollutants, reducing stress and improving productivity. And get you in touch with your biophilic side. Go to plantz.us.
The average person spends around $219 a month on subscriptions. That's a huge chunk of change. But here's a secret. You can get access to the same movies, books, video games, and more for free. All you need is a library card. I'm Kim Commando, America's Digital Pro. Your library card unlocks a ton of subscriptions. Sure, you can borrow ebooks and audiobooks from popular services like Overdrive and Libby, but it goes beyond books. Let's say you'd like to learn a new language. With a library card, you can use online platforms like Rosetta Stone to learn dozens of languages, no cost. Music and movie buffs, you can borrow CDs, DVDs, and Blu-rays, or stream music and videos from popular services like Canopy and FreeGal. That's not all. Many libraries now offer subscriptions to specialized databases and services like Ancestry.com. And I know most of you already pay for a lot of these. Hey, for more tech smarts, get my free daily email. You can put yourself on the list right now at getkim.com.
You can Google anything, but you can't Google trusted advice. And that's why millions just like you turn to Kim Commando every day on national radio, television, and USA Today to help protect and secure your computers, smartphones, televisions, and most important, to keep you and your family safe from hackers and scammers. If you're not already getting Kim's free breaking security alerts, you're missing a critical component to living in today's digital age. You can sign up now at commando.com/subscribe. Kim sends these free email newsletters to your inbox only when data breaches could expose your personal information. And when hackers find new ways to break into your computers and devices, Kim is always looking out for you. It's easy and free to get Kim's breaking security alerts. Go to commando.com/subscribe. Enter your email address and that's it. That's commando.com/subscribe. Commando.com/subscribe.
Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb in Real Estate Show. Got questions about perennial flowers? What about issues with closing on your newest property? Locally, call 813-289-1860. Toll free at 877-969-8600. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And James, of course, is off, but I am here, and Mr. Ken, who you often hear here as kind of a sidekick news. I guess in a way, you kind of are part of that award that came through with Roger P.
With the weather one, I did have some doing in that, yes.
So that is good. Let's go back to your gardenia.
Yes.
You've got some, it's kind of misshapen because it's dropped some foliage and you got some dead branches. Mm-hmm. Dead branches are never doing you any good. So I'm going to recommend you get out your little pruning shears.
Get them off of there.
And cut it back to live wood. And I'd keep scraping, maybe even take a little knife, a little pocket knife, and kind of go, well, that's dead, that's dead. That's kind of brown, that's almost green. Here it's green. Okay. And that tells you where to trim back to. If I have an odd place, I usually like to trim where it looks like it wants to branch, where there's been a leaf node. And you can see where the little bumps are on the stem, and that's where a leaf was at one point. Normally, they're being held by hormonal action from up above. You can't sprout. Once that top part gets cut off, that little node goes, I'm not being suppressed by the node above me, and I can now start to pop out.
I see. I didn't know it worked like that.
So, and often it'll branch out. If you see a node going off, let's say there's a hole in the branch or the bush this way. If you can pick a node that's aimed that way, it's going to break that way.
It's going to go that way, okay.
Typically, you do see your little fingernail? About your fingernail, little fingernail, above that bud and in that direction. If you want to take it, takes a second, but you can put your fingernail against it and go, okay, that's about where I ought to cut to. If you leave a long cut, it dies back. So people do that sometimes. They'll go, well, I'll just cut here. Well, you're like halfway between a node here and a node here, so it'll normally die back.
Okay.
So you've now learned trimming 101.
All right.
And
helpful.
Most people don't know that.
No, till this second, I did not.
And see, I've taken you with a mind full of mush and turned you into a horticulturist here on the Greenthumb Chase.
So I should do that on all these plants that I have.
Yes.
Okay.
I see some work in your future. I would also put a little mulch around that because the soil looks kind of dry. I might add something that's, the wood breaks down, little mulch pieces, cypress mulch or wood chips. Or I sometimes go out and get some where I can find chips from a place, and I bring them back because it helps the organic matter. Remember, our soil has about 1% organic matter. And for it to be ideal, it'd be about 25% organic matter. So you can see we are woefully low.
Yeah.
And that's almost the reason anybody says, well, wherever I was before, be it Chicago, suburbs or New York State, my soil looked dark. It looked dark, looked black normally.
Yes.
And when you look at our sand, you go, this looks like beach sand. And it kind of was. And sometimes you'll even find little, prehistoric shells and things there that were there a long, long time ago. We have had cold and warmth in our planet for a long time, and water levels have risen and fallen. I think it's always amazing when people come out and go, by the year 2000, we're going to be underwater. I don't know. Did we pass 2000?
Yeah, I think water level came up 1/16 of an inch.
Okay, so that means we got a long time off. I find it ironic too when they go, and I like the idea of having solar on my house. I like the idea. I mean, I sometimes think, MC squared. If I could have the solar up here and maybe a little wind turbine here, and I could get on a bicycle over here, I could maybe save a lot of energy. But and the reality is we're not quite there yet. And, I think it's amazing. We sometimes come out and we'll say, we're going to spend $1 trillion on making U.S. greener. Well, we're one little country. What about the rest? And I don't blame the folks who are, if you're in China, you're in India, and you want to have something, and you got
to live too.
And they say, well, we have to fire coal here because we can't afford this. Right. Then they still like to have refrigerators and televisions and things like we do. And you're going to say, no, you can't have them because you're not us. Well, I don't think I'd listen if I were over there. And guess what? They don't.
That's right.
And I think it has to be something we can think about these things, how we're going to change things. But I don't know about you, but I get resentful. Every time I go out and I see the gas is $3.75 when it was $3.40 because somebody has cut back on the pipe, I'm like, no, give me that fuel. I mean, I was kind of hacked off when we turned off the...
Well, it's a political weapon now.
Yeah, now it becomes politics. And I think the shame is now we're going to start suing everybody over everything. Okay, well, Fox could afford to pay that. What's CNN going to do? Certainly they've done the same thing. If you sue them, you can say, well, here's the station. We've been firing all of our hosts anyway because we don't get any numbers.
That's right.
So
we're killing ourselves. Don't worry about it. We'll be gone in no time.
So you can say, well, you can say, well, the Fox lied. Well, sure, they lied. They may have lied. Then they do. And they tell their show hosts sometimes, here's our agenda. The left do it too.
Just to be clear,
yes,
when you're looking at Tucker Carlson, and he freely admits this,
yes,
you're looking at commentary. You're not looking at news. And there's a distinct difference between news and commentary.
Sure.
And you can say whatever you want in commentary.
And that's what happens. And unfortunately, on both sides, sometimes even Tucker came out and said, hey, I don't want to keep repeating this thing because I've said it 2 or 3 times. Yeah. And I think we're pushing the boundaries. And, of course, some people said, you need to keep saying those, you're pushing the boundaries on some things that may be questionable. But Tucker is big enough now that he can say, well, no, I'm not going to say that because,
right.
You want to replace me? Who are you going to come up with? And sometimes his laugh gets a little bit weird, but I figured so does the vice president. So anyway,
back
to your plants and stuff. You got some holes there, and something else you had, I think, besides your gardenia. I'd also like to see you put either some sulfur around your soil of this. Next time we come in, I want you to bring me a little baggie of soil.
A baggie of soil?
A little baggie of soil.
Okay.
And I think your pH is too alkaline. I think, and most of our soils are. So I'm going to probably recommend some sulfur, which you can get at any Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever, any garden center. I'd love to be recommending a certain garden center, but I can't right now because every time I call these guys, they're like, we're making so darn much money, we don't want to spend any money on advertising.
So sulfur and liquid copper is what I'm looking for.
Yes, I see those two in your future.
Yes, okay.
And that's not a great expense. You'll be able to still, well,
it's cheaper than
you're cutting back on your smokes anyway. So look all the money you're saving.
I really am. Yeah,
I'm well proud of you. That needs to be done. Would tell a lot of folks out there too, cut back on all that saturated fat food we're all eating. because they've done some research, and sometimes they look at the arteries of people. You can run this one by Dr. Bill. That the arteries are worse in the people who aren't even smoking than some of the smokers, and it's partly due to so much fat that we get everything cooked in these days, and other so that we have too much sugar. Anyway, you stay with us as the plant talk and real estate talk continues. I've got your phone here too. Now it's going to sell it. Who's got $200? Who got it? $225, $250. Anyway, 1-877-969. Okay, 8600. You stay with us as the plant talk continues.
Want to talk real estate? Call James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127 or go online, aflre.com. Did you know that Stan DeFreitas, Mr. Greenthumb, can come to your house and examine your plants, trees, and palms? His knowledge can help you become the envy of your neighborhood with lush, green, healthy trees that don't just live, but thrive. Palms and oak trees are part of what makes Florida a beautiful place to live, but they get diseases and are often cut down. We offer ways to save your trees. Call or text Stan today at 727-423-4794 or go online to askmrgreenthumb.com. That's ASKMRgreenthumb.com.
AM 860, The Answer. Listen on our website, theanswertampa.com. 3.7 FM, W229DJ Dunedin. By downloading the Answer Tampa app or on TuneIn or Odyssey. Here's the latest from the Answer News Center. AM 860, The Answer. Online at theanswertampa.com. AM 860, The Answer. Turbulent times call for clear-headed insight. It's hard to come by these days, especially on TV. That's where we come in. The new Salem News Channel, the greatest collection of conservative minds, all in one place. Home to the people you trust. Dennis Prager, Mike Gallagher, Sebastian Gorka, and more. Refreshingly honest, always unfiltered. Streaming free on your TV 24/7. Intelligent analysis for intelligent people. Find what you're looking for at snc.tv. That's snc.tv.
The Great Resignation is upon us, and for good reason. People hate their jobs. Quitting your job is easy. It's finding one you won't also hate that's hard. At National Aviation Academy, as little as 14 months. Call 800-659-2080. Visit wingmenwanted.com. Quit hating. Start training. Visit wingmenwanted.com. For more information about our statistics, visit naa.edu/consumer-information.
Stock market doesn't come with instructions. So how can the average investor make above average returns? Listen to Best Stocks Now with Bill Gunderson. Investors trust Bill with hundreds of millions under management. As president of Gunderson Capital Management, he's been featured on Fox News, Fox Business, The Street, and Market Watch. To boil it down, this guy knows what he's talking about. These days, that's saying something. Best Stocks Now with Bill Gunderson. Weekday afternoons at 3, right here on AM 860 The Answer, and streaming on theanswertampa.com.
Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb in Real Estate Show. Connect online at askmrgreenthumb.com. Got questions about gardening, real estate, or both? Locally, call 813-289-1860. Toll free at 877-969-8600. And now, your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And James is off, but this segment is brought to you by Dream It Real Estate. And I'm very proud of my son. He is the broker of record for Dream It Real Estate. And if you can dream it, we can make it happen. I like working with him. I'm also an agent, so I tend to help. We have a closing coming up this week, and that is always, you can tell to any agent, what day is the happiest day? The closing day, because that means you're getting paid. And we were happy on this one. Actually, we've worked in this condo before. I had a guy call me a few years ago, and he didn't have any money hardly. He called me up and says, "You won't want to work with me because I don't have that much money." And I said, Jeffrey, I will treat you just as well as if you were a multimillionaire because I don't treat people differently. He said, well, I talked to a couple agents and they said they didn't really want to help me. And he was in a nursing facility and in a wheelchair. And he goes, well, things are, this isn't good. He had a roommate who said had a pillow, and the roommate would come up to him every night saying, hey, I could snuff you out and kill you.
Okay, time to leave.
Yeah, it was time to leave. Well, I had a problem. I had to go to, there was somebody watching over him, and they didn't want to really lose the money at the nursing facility. But Jeff wanted to leave, so we did get him into this nice little condo. And he stayed there for about a year or two, and then he moved to Ecuador. And I said, Jeffrey, I as much as I like making a commission on you, I have to tell you, I think you should stay here because of health care. You're in a wheelchair and you have certain health problems. But if you know Jeff, he was one of the reasons he wanted to leave the nursing facility. He was an artist, paints under the name of Caleb. And he's a great artist, by the way. And they wouldn't let him have his paints at the nursing facility. They say, you're going to make a mess.
Well, that's sad.
And he could get to his little condo. We said, look, he's got a whole area here. I said, Jeffrey, you can drop paint wherever you want. This whole little thing is yours. And he still didn't do that. He didn't make a mess. And he is very talented. He's actually moved to Ecuador. And I said, well, the one reason I was a little worried about him going to Ecuador is that he was in a wheelchair. I said, remember, Ecuador is kind of like a lot of the streets there are like Spain. There are those cobblestone bricks that, they'll last for 2,000 years, but they're not that easy on wheels, especially wheelchair wheels.
Yeah, they're not ADA compliant.
And yes, exactly. But he was down there. He was so happy because he had a young lady who would come in and cook his breakfast for $2. And then at dinner, she'd come in and cook his dinner for $2. And he said, I get to live like a king down here in Ecuador. And he really liked it, and actually wound up getting married down there. But so we were happy.
Is English prevalent down there?
No, but Jeffrey could speak. I call it Spanglish. He could speak. He could speak a little bit of Spanish enough, and I'm sure if you immerse yourself in the culture, you will learn.
Right. You need a bathroom. You better figure out how to say it.
Yeah, it's baños. Yeah. Having traveled a little bit, I can tell you some of those words you pick up real quick because you want to know where they're at. And I don't think my Spanish is that.
But obviously, he knew enough to survive.
He did. Yeah. Well, you know what happened to him down there, too? His first day down, he called us his wheelchair broke on the cobblestone road.
Man.
And James, being the good young man that he is, James got on the internet. We found him a welder in Ecuador. And he calls us back and he said, that's pretty damn good service to find me a welder in Ecuador. Especially since I'm down here now. But we said, hey, once you're our friend and your buddy, your pal, we don't leave you in a lurch just because this isn't exactly what we have to do as realtors. But we did it because we became friends with Jeff. And
yeah, I'm impressed. You found an Ecuadorian welder to help him
We
out.
did. Yeah, and I thought that was great. And Jeff was pretty happy too because, when you're in a wheelchair, getting around is your only way of movement. And great dude. Jeffrey's also a smart guy. You could tell that even if he didn't know the language that well, he's the kind whose mind is always thinking and questioning. So he would pick up wherever he is at. He would pick up the language because he's just that kind of.
Yeah, I'm sure he's much happier.
And he seems to be happy. He seemed to find a great young lady down there who he is seems to be very, very happy. He has a cat, and life is good. He has a lot of things to paint. I see his paintings almost every day. I'm seeing something new he's working on, and very talented artist. I wish I had half his talent. I asked him one time, I said, how do you become a great artist? He said, you only have to spend 100,000 hours doing it. He says, and anybody will become a great artist.
That's right.
And I think it's right. It's true. I mean, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Well,
Practice.
you play.
Right.
You practice. And it's kind of true even in gardening. If you want to become pretty good at it, you have to work at it. I remember working with our good friend Jack Harris one time. I was doing a segment on Channel 13 back when we were going way back to the old days of Pulse Plus. And I don't know how many of you out there remember Pulse Plus, but I came in like Martin Gramatica and did my one weekly segment. No, you won't find my name mentioned on any of the walls over at Channel 13, but I did for that for a number of years. Went over there and did some segments.
If you want, I'll sneak in at night and write it on the wall.
You're right on the wall, yes. You can say Stan was here, and underneath it, Red was too. But anyway, I'm thinking back of Shawshank. But anyway, I grafted one time a tomato onto a potato because they're both in the Solanaceae family, and I knew I could do it. And so I actually had new little tomatoes on top, little cherries, and I had some little potatoes on the bottom. And if you know Jack, Jack was going, wowie zowie, Greenthumb's trying to grow some ketchup for his French fries. And that's a pretty good Jack too. I'm a fairly good imitator on a few. And Jack is one that I've done for years, but I've known him forever. We did some segments at 13. We did some segments at Channel 8 also. And so wherever Jack went, I tended to follow along, which I always thought, this is crazy. I'm going out for an hour to find plant material and bring stuff in, and then you'd get your 2.5 minutes on air. But Jack was great about holding up my book, and I'm sure he helped me sell. Supposedly, I've sold 500,000 books over the lifetime of the book, and we're talking about doing a 4th edition. So that would be great. I think it'll be probably more of a paperback. I really like it as a hardback bound book, but the cost, I think, it's just become so expensive.
What about
now.
publishing just online?
Well, you could. I might still do something like that sometime too. I'm still thinking of doing a book on the heart for gardening, and I have an outline and I started some stuff, but I didn't really. I get busy like you do. We all get busy into doing our things that we do. And then your creative process sometimes gets pushed off, but I still have that as one of my projects that I really would like to do, and I hope I will. Somebody asked me about that yesterday. Hey, what about that book you mentioned that you're going to do? And I said, well, I intend to, but I got to probably do a rewrite on my Stan DeFreitas' Complete Guide to Florida Gardening, which is in all the libraries. It's probably pretty much sold out. I still have a few copies left. If somebody wants an autographed copy, you can contact me. Give me a call on my cell, 727-423-4794. The cover was done by a guy who did the movie Tron for Disney. And so at the time I said they were paying him thousands and thousands for this cover design. And I said, gosh, he's making more money than me. And then I realized that he helped a lot of people pick my book up. And because of that, we sold a bunch of books.
Good cover does help, yeah.
Statistically, 50% of the people who pick a book up and look at it and look through it will buy it.
Really? I didn't know it was that high.
Yeah. So we're teaching you all kind of.
Now, what about folks who, like me, have pictures of plants or something they want to like to answer for?
Well, they can send them to me and get a drink of water here.
I know, I'm sure a lot of folks, just like me, purchased a new house in the last few years, and they've got all these plants sitting around.
You can send it to the same number I just gave you, where you could order a book, but you could also send me a text. If you've got your phone, you can just text it to my cell number, which is 727-423-4794. And I'll give that again out slowly, 727-423-4794. So you can text me, and I do text. I also do email. You can email me at askmrgreenthumb.com, and there's a little button you hit, and you can upload photos.
And that's what you really like to see, I imagine.
I do like to see photos, because then it helps me. If I've got to come to a consult, then I have to charge. I only have so much time. But if you want to send me a picture, I don't charge for the looking at your picture. And often, if it's a good picture, if you get up tight on the foliage, maybe one far away, and take 2 or 3 shots. Let me see it from different angles. Let me look at the trunk.
Because I imagine you would be able to identify something that needs immediate care.
Yeah, normally I can. And when I look at a lot of the laurel oaks, water oaks, almost all of the old ones have problems. Now, I know you're sitting there going, well, it looks pretty good to me, because you're not really looking at it closely, and you're not looking at it with the same eye that I would. Say, with your own eyes. You can look at it. If you start to see little holes like BB holes, you start to see bigger holes. And often I'll tell you where you'll see this, unless it where something has been cut off on a big branch. Okay. That wood is not as strong once they've cut off that wood. Now, it tries to start to compartmentalize on the edges. It rolls over. But often the wood in the center there is not as strong, and you'll see a hole. And it may be the size of maybe the size of a nickel or a quarter. That means that you've got some borers going into the tree. And if you don't treat, eventually you're going to be calling our friends at Stafford Tree Service to take it down. And, we want Kelly to have work. She's a great sponsor, one of our loyal sponsors. So we appreciate sending stuff to her. Kelly does a great job. I usually get nice calls from people saying, hey, we're so glad that Stafford came out. They did a wonderful job. But, Kelly's just as happy to send her crew out to trim your tree back some, keep it off the roof, and keep the tree going so you can call her in a few years to do it again. If you take a tree down once, it's a once and done. If you trim it because you don't want it overgrowing your house, that is just as good as well.
So send in those pictures.
Send me a picture. Let me see your huddled masses. Let me see those pictures. If I can see them, I can probably help you. And that's what I'm trying to do. Give me a call, 727-423-4794. And you can send me a picture to that same number. Stay with us as the Plant Talk and Real Estate Talk continues here on AM 860, The Answer.
Interested in having a home consult? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at AskMrGreenthumb.com.
Why choose Stafford Tree Service? Is it because they're experienced, have the latest equipment, and friendly professional personnel? Absolutely. Stafford's positioned themselves as a leading tree trimming company in all of Tampa Bay. With honest professionals and competitive pricing, they'll earn your trust too. In business for over 15 years, Stafford Tree Service is licensed, bonded, and insured to provide you the very best tree trimming experience. Call today, 727-546-8786, 727-546-8786. On the web at StaffordTreeSVC.com.
Biophilia, our innate attraction to other living things. It's why people love plants. And around Tampa Bay, Plants, that's Plantz, is bringing nature inside, in workspaces and homes by delivering beautiful foliage plants. Our plants increase oxygen and filter out pollutants, reducing stress and improving productivity. And get you in touch with your biophilic side. Go to plantz.us.
Corey and Zach lingered in foster care for years, longing for a permanent place to call home. They lost hope.
I felt alone in the world. I didn't feel loved. Every day felt like a lost cause. I thought, who would want to adopt an older child?
I thought, I'm going to end up on the streets. That's just how it's going to be.
Thankfully, Corey and Zach's journey changed when they were adopted with help from the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption.
It's really difficult to wonder how you're going to make it. I'm not going to have that problem now. I just won't, because I have a family.
Today, Corey and Zach have bright futures. But every year, thousands of youth age out of foster care with no permanent family and no safety net. Learn more at davethomasfoundation.org.
Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Green Thumb in Real Estate Show. Got questions about perennial flowers? What about issues with closing on your newest property? Locally, call 813-289-1860. Toll free at 877-969-8600. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFritas.
And we're here to help you. James, of course, is off this Sunday, but he's with me most of the time. And this is a time, if you've got a question, we still got about 10 minutes. If you want to give me a call, you can. And 1-877-969-8600 or 813-289-1860. Give me a progress report about what's going on in your backyard. Gave a nice little talk yesterday on Earth Day, and that was to the Oldsmar Library. Had a great little talk. They had some lemonade and some cookies and other refreshments there for people, so it was a nice time. People brought in some plants. One lady brought in her gardenia. She had been told to just water it once a week, but as dry as it is, in a nursery, you will see them watering every day. Now, it's in a container. If you put something into the ground, you have a little more protection. But a lot of people like to have things in containers so they can move them around on your porch, your patio. You can bring them in, too, if they're cold sensitive. If you've got your favorite hibiscus, your favorite plumeria, you can bring it in if it's in a large container sometimes. On that day or two that your relatives visit you from Buffalo, New York, or from, Michigan, Ohio, some of those areas where it's cool, we do get cool here on occasion. And even in Tampa Bay, there are areas that are colder than that. And it's hard to think about cold right now as we're going into our heat period. Right now, every time we get another little cool spell, I'm going, thank God. We were getting a little more cool before we go into July and August. June, July, and August are hot in Florida, and even early September. Though I thought we had a mild winter. That was great. Good for the country. Good for us. One of the nice things with a little bit of warming, global warming, if you will, is that we actually can grow some areas around the world in some areas a little bit further north. And that is good. A lot of people are growing a lot of things. We need to keep growing. Now, the question on fertilizers, I still think be judicious on where you put fertilizer and don't put it out where it's going to be sucked into Tampa Bay. Am I more worried about what they did at the phosphate plant? You bet. Millions and millions and millions of gallons of tainted water went into Tampa Bay. And I am sure that did not help with the red tide problem that we had and are still having. You don't need all those millions of gallons of extra nutrients. And I would think it's great too. We sell to this one, to this one, to this one, and then we go, well, this company doesn't have any money. Who's going to take care of it? Well, the state will take care of it. Kind of questionable, just a tad. Real estate. If you are looking for a real estate agent, you may want to think about Dream It Real Estate. My son, James, is the owner and the broker of record for Dream It Real Estate. And we've been with some of the big companies. We were with some of the biggest companies in the Tampa Bay area. We just decided to do our own thing. We actually James is looking for a few more agents that may want to work under his banner. You'll get one-on-one. I mean, I know one big brokerage in Tampa Bay that has, I think, 2 brokers for about 1,200 agents. That's hardly enough to really help you when you have a problem. Now, there's some other people, you can try to go to experienced agents that have been around, and many of them will be helpful to young agents. But I'm always amazed, you get through real estate school, and that's like the very beginning stage. Now, you've learned some of the laws, and you've learned some of the points of real estate, but you also need to be able to figure out some of the problems that can occur and will occur. People say, well, why don't I just FSBO stuff? Well, sure, you can FSBO stuff. First problem you have is getting the word out. You can't put it into MLS unless you're a realtor. So that's one of the problems. On line 3. All right, let's go to line 3, and we'll find out who that is. Good morning.
Good morning, fellows. This is Andy over here in Northeast St. Pete.
Hey, Andy, how are you?
Great, thank you. Love your show. I have to order your book, but I wanted to ask how frequently I should water an avocado if it's a pretty large tree, but I'm not seeing very many buds at all. The leaves have been nibbled on and a little bit shriveled in this drought versus a mango tree, which is about 20 feet away, which has tennis ball-sized fruit already.
Okay. Yeah, the avocado is sometimes harder to tell. Did you have any blooms a couple months ago on the avocado?
Yes.
You did? Okay. I water my avocado almost a little bit every day because it's been so dry that we haven't had it. I've got an irrigation system and it does hit it fairly well, but I also find myself dragging my watering can over there too and giving it some water in addition. I do have some fruit. I don't know how many of the fruit have held. Last year I had probably about 100. And I was happy because every time I go to Publix, and I love avocados, but it breaks my Scottish heart to spend $2 to $3 for an avocado. And it's sometimes it's harder to see avocados because they're the same color. Now mine becomes a real pretty black color when it's ready. It's called a Brogden, and it will become a very glossy black when it's ready to harvest. But some just are dark green. I would say last year I did have a little bit of fungus. I had some scabbing on it, and I probably should have sprayed it with copper. The scabbing doesn't really hurt the fruit any. It's just more of a cosmetic problem. But sometimes you'll get a fungus that grows into the fruit, and it'll cause it to drop. And that's where spraying when it's the size of a marble to a golf ball, you may want to spray it with copper. And copper to me it's a natural element. They don't usually kick you out of the Organic Garden Club for spraying with copper or dithane 45, which is both zinc and manganese. Your mangoes also can get into fungus problems. You'll see that brown spotting. It gets into the leaf and sometimes gets into the fruit. So sometimes I like to spray mangoes too if I'm seeing any signs of fungus. And I'm not a big one for spraying any more than you have to. And that's funny because I've been in the spraying business for most of my life. Today I spray less than we ever did, and I'm mostly injecting trees like oaks. I'd rather inject into a tree. In the old days with oaks, I would spray with lindane, which was benzene hexachloride, and it killed the borers. But, I had to wear look like I was heading to Mars. I had a spray mask on and goggles and, all the accoutrements of looking like I was ready for World War I. But I used to do more of that. I don't anymore. And most of the chemicals we use today are safer and safer. There are things where I can use some soapy materials or oils. And so I'm trying to get away from some of the harder pesticides that I used to use. There are times, of course, that you still have to use them. And I also like to use nutrients in some of the oak trees. When we inject trees for borers, when you start seeing holes, I usually use the nutrient and also the fertilizer too. But I would say with your mangoes, probably some copper, maybe some dithane 45. If you want, send me a picture. Give you my cell. You can text it to me, 727-423-4794. You can also order a book that way too. I also usually do give also a thing for Tampa Bay Magazine, a $40 value for free when you buy my book from me. So,
so your number's 423-4794 in Pinellas.
In Pinellas, 727-423-4794. And of course, I have the phone off right now. It's with me. I have it on block, so it won't. Otherwise, I'd have people ringing me while I'm on the air. But you can call me afterwards, and if you can send me some pictures, it helps. Like Ken just did earlier. He brought in some great photos, and then I can see them. If I can see them, it helps me to tell you if you need to spray with that copper. Right now, it's been very, very dry, and we really need to water when it gets really dry because the first thing a tree does is drop fruit when it's into problems.
Oh, my mangoes dropped a ton of fruit.
I bet. Yeah, they probably said, hey, how do we save ourselves?
Okay, thank you so much, Stan's dad.
Yes, I am here. I am, or James's dad. This is.
Oh, James. Okay, sorry, Stan.
Yeah.
And I called you a year ago about should I eliminate squirrels that are eating the mango, and you said if you do, the neighbors' squirrels who have more in their family are going to move into your yard on Snow Island. So I'm the same Andy.
Okay, yeah, I remember your call. I was going to say it is the other white meat, but then I'll get a ton of calls from people saying,
Thank you.
Have a nice one. Thanks for calling, Andy. We appreciate that. Yeah, give me a holler, 727-423-4794 or askmrgreenthumb.com. And that's ask and then MR and then green and then thumb. We appreciate and love each and every one of you. Hopefully you'll have a great weekend. And as Teddy used to say, live it up.
Want to talk real estate? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at askmrgreenthumb.com.
Tampa Bay's only conservative station. AM 860, The Answer. WGUL.